What if I told you there's a simple spoonful of something, not a pill, not a supplement, not a prescription, that could send healthy, nourishing blood right back into the place you want it most and keep it there? And that for some men over 55, this one nightly ritual has not only restored their firmness, but even reignited the confidence they thought was gone forever. I know it sounds far-fetched. You've been told for years that what's happening down there is just aging, that your best days are behind you. But after 35 years as a urologist here in Greenville, I can tell you with absolute certainty that's not the whole truth. The real truth is that your body still remembers. The spark, the sensation, the strength, it's still there. It's just waiting for the right conditions to wake back up. And tonight, I want to talk to you as if we were sitting across my old desk, just two men having an honest conversation. Because what I'm about to share isn't theory. It's something I've seen work for thousands of my own patients. Men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s who thought intimacy was over for them, only to find out nature had one more surprise in store. I'm Dr. Edward. For more than 3 decades, I've been helping older men restore their sexual health naturally, without risky pills, without shame, and without gimmicks. And in this video, I'm going to reveal the nightly spoonful that, when used the right way, can nourish blood flow, calm the prostate, and leave your manhood feeling more alive in the morning than it has in years. But I'm not going to dump it all on you at once. You'll see why as we go along, because each piece of this puzzle builds on the last. Think of it like warming an old engine on a cold morning. We're going to turn the key slowly, let the warmth spread, and by the end, you'll understand exactly how this works and why it could change the way you think about aging altogether. Before we dive in, go ahead and subscribe and click that little bell icon. It only gets more interesting from here. And while you're at it, drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I read every single one. Now, let me ask you something personal, not to embarrass you, but to get us both thinking in the right direction. When was the last time you woke up with that familiar morning fullness? The kind that didn't just happen in your head, but in your body? If it's been a while, you're not alone. I've had men come to me who hadn't felt it in 5, 10, even 15 years. And yet, with the right approach, it came back. Here's the part most men never hear. The problem isn't always in the obvious place. It's not just the penis. It's the blood that feeds it. The smooth, fast-moving, nutrient-rich blood that once rushed in without effort. That's the lifeline. Over time, that blood flow can slow, weaken, and in some cases, get blocked entirely by things we can't see or feel until it's too late. That's why tonight's topic matters so much. Because the one spoon before bed I'm going to share with you doesn't just give you a quick boost. It actually changes the internal environment your blood travels through. It helps make the vessels more responsive, the tissues more willing to receive, and the signals between brain and body stronger. I'll never forget a man named Lawrence, 68, a retired firefighter. He came to me saying, "Doc, I don't care about looking like I'm 30 again. I just want to feel like a man when I wake up." His eyes told me it was more than physical. It was about identity, self-respect, connection with his wife. We started him on this nightly ritual. The first week, nothing. The second week, he noticed something strange. I'm waking up earlier, and I think I feel a little warmth down there. By week 3, he walked into my office with a grin and said, "Doc, I think my wife's been sleeping better too." That's the snowball effect I want for you. Not just a jolt of energy, but a quiet, steady return of life to the most personal parts of your body. And the beauty is you don't have to overhaul your diet, spend hours in the gym, or give up every indulgence you enjoy. You just have to understand why this works. And I promise, once you do, you'll never look at your evening routine the same way again. So let's take this step by step. First, We need to talk about the real reasons a man's blood flow to his pelvis slows down after 55 and why this spoonful before bed can directly counteract those changes. We'll start simple, then peel back the layers until you can see the whole picture. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's when things start to change. If you're over 55, you've probably noticed it already. Things don't quite wake up like they used to. And if you're like most men I've worked with over the past 3 decades, you've probably blamed it on age, stress, or maybe just bad luck. But the truth, my friend, is far more interesting and far more fixable. Think about your plumbing for a second. In a new home, water flows freely. The pipes are clean, smooth, responsive. Turn the tap and it gushes out. But as the years go by, little bits of mineral buildup cling to the walls. The flow slows. And if the pressure inside those pipes drops, even a little, what used to be a strong rush becomes a weak trickle. That's exactly what happens inside your own body. Your pipes, the blood vessels, aren't just carrying water, they're carrying life itself to every cell, every muscle, and yes, to the part of you that defines your masculinity. And here's the kicker. Those blood vessels that feed your manhood are some of the smallest in your entire body, which means they're the first to feel the pinch when circulation starts to slow. At first, the signs are subtle. You might notice your morning firmness isn't quite as reliable. You might find you take longer to get aroused, or that things don't feel as full or as responsive. And because these changes creep in quietly, most men ignore them until one day they realize it's been months or even years since they felt truly alive down there. But the narrowing of your blood vessels is just the first layer of the problem. The second layer is inflammation. I often describe it to my patients like rust inside those pipes. You can't see it, but it's there, slowly roughening the inner walls, making it harder for blood to glide through. This isn't the sudden, painful kind of inflammation you feel in a sprained ankle. It's slow, silent, and constant. I call it the quiet thief because it doesn't just take away firmness, it steals energy, drive, and even the emotional spark that makes intimacy exciting. And there's a third piece most men never hear about: congestion in the lower pelvis. Over the years, our lifestyles change. We sit more. We move less. The muscles that used to pump blood and lymphatic fluid through our pelvis aren't as active. Toxins, waste products, and old, stale blood can linger there. It's like an old pond with no fresh water flowing in. The life starts to fade. I had a patient, Bill, 72, who told me, "Doc, it's like there's a fog between my brain and my body." He wasn't just talking about desire. He was talking about the connection itself. And when I examined him, I could tell his blood flow was sluggish, his tissues were puffy with inflammation, and his pelvic muscles had the tone of a man who'd been sitting too much for too many years. Now, here's the part that gets overlooked. Your prostate sits right in the middle of all this. When it swells, even slightly, it presses on nearby blood vessels and nerves. That means less blood can get in and fewer signals can get out. That's why so many men notice not only weaker erections, but also that frustrating urge to get up and urinate at night. It's all connected. So you see, the real problem isn't just aging. It's a perfect storm. Narrower blood vessels, silent inflammation, pelvic congestion, and a prostate that's starting to crowd the neighborhood. Left alone, this storm slowly erodes your firmness, your sensation, and your confidence. But, and this is the part one want you to really hear, every single piece of that storm could be addressed naturally. The one spoon before bed, I'm going to tell you about works because it doesn't just push on one part of the problem. It works on the whole system. It helps clear the pipes so blood can flow more freely. It soothes the rust of inflammation. It stirs that stagnant pond in your pelvis, getting fresh blood and oxygen moving again. And it even helps take pressure off the prostate so the nerves can fire like they used to. But before I give you the full details, I want to show you how I discovered this in the first place. Because it started not in a lab, but in my office here in Greenville with a man who had tried everything and was ready to give up until he put one simple thing on a spoon. His name was Henry. 70 years old, retired machinist, hands still strong, but eyes carrying that tired, quiet look I've seen too many times. He sat across from me one Thursday afternoon and said, "Doc, I'm not here for a miracle. I just want to wake up and feel like a man again." He wasn't being dramatic. For nearly 5 years, Henry had been waking without a single morning erection. Intimacy with his wife had become rare, not because the love was gone, but because the body wasn't cooperating. He'd tried pills, supplements, even a few awkward devices he found online. Nothing felt natural, nothing felt right. When I examined him, the signs were all there: mild prostate swelling, sluggish pelvic circulation, a low-grade inflammation that was quietly blocking the signals between his brain and his manhood. His blood vessels weren't damaged beyond repair. They were just tight, constricted, like garden hoses left out in the cold. I told him, "Henry, this isn't about forcing your body to perform. It's about giving it the right environment so it remembers how to perform on its own." And that's when I shared with him something I've been quietly recommending to my older patients for years: a single spoon of a natural blend before bed, designed to nourish blood flow while you sleep. The base was something you'd recognize immediately: raw, unprocessed honey. Not the stuff in a plastic bear from the supermarket, but dark, thick honey loaded with enzymes, minerals, and natural sugars that your body can use for gentle, sustained energy. Most men think sugar is the enemy, but the natural glucose and fructose in raw honey actually help your liver store glycogen overnight, which in turn supports testosterone production in the early morning hours, right when you want it most. But the magic wasn't in the honey alone. Into that spoon, we mixed a pinch, just a pinch, of ground clove. If you've never tasted it raw, clove has a sharp, warm bite to it. That comes from a compound called eugenol, which acts as a natural vasodilator. In plain English, it tells your blood vessels to relax and open up. For Henry, whose pelvic vessels were tight and unresponsive, this was like whispering to them, "It's safe to open again." The last touch was a squeeze of fresh lemon juice. Not enough to make it sour, just enough to add vitamin C and bioflavonoids, which protect nitric oxide molecules in your blood from breaking down too quickly. Nitric oxide is the go signal for an erection. Without enough of it, your brain can shout all at once, but your blood vessels won't listen. I told Henry to take this spoon about 20 to 30 minutes before bed. Not as a snack, not as a sweet treat, but as a nightly ritual. I explained that during sleep, his body would have uninterrupted hours to circulate these compounds, repair vessel linings, and gently encourage blood to move into places it hadn't reached well in years. The first week, he felt warmer at night, slept more deeply. The second week, he woke one morning with a faint heaviness in his groin. Not the full firmness yet, but a sign the blood was returning. By week 3, he told me, "Doc, I don't know how else to say this, but I woke up and felt 20 years younger." His wife had noticed too. And here's the part one loved most. It wasn't just the physical changes. His energy during the day improved. His mood lifted. He walked into my office straighter, looking me in the eye like a man who'd gotten a part of himself back. But I told Henry what I'm going to tell you now. As powerful as that nightly spoon was, it was just the first step. Because once we'd opened up those blood vessels and started nourishing them, the next thing we did took his results from better to remarkable. And that's where we go next. Henry's turnaround was impressive. But as I reminded him, and as I've seen countless times, the body loves momentum. Once you give it the right nudge, it's hungry for more. And if you feed it the right second step, the changes can accelerate in a way that surprises you. That's where castor oil came in. Now, most men raise an eyebrow when I mention it. They remember their grandmother keeping it in the cupboard as a home remedy for stomach issues. But applied the right way, castor oil is one of the most powerful circulation stimulators I've ever used in my practice, especially for older men with pelvic congestion, mild prostate swelling, or sluggish blood flow to the groin. Let me tell you about James, 66, a retired postal worker. He'd been following the same nightly honey, clove ritual I gave Henry, and he'd seen some progress: stronger morning fullness, better sleep, even more sensitivity. But he still felt like there was a block inside, something that kept his response from being as quick or as strong as he remembered. I explained to James that while the honey and clove were nourishing his blood vessel from the inside, we could also work from the outside, directly on the tissues, vessels, and lymphatic channels in his lower pelvis. That's where castor oil shines. Castor oil is rich in a compound called ricinoleic acid, which penetrates deep into the skin and underlying tissue. When applied over the lower abdomen, inner thighs, and even the perineum, the area between the scrotum and anus, it stimulates both blood flow and lymphatic drainage. Think of it as clearing out an old, silted-up riverbed so fresh, oxygen-rich water can rush through again. I gave James a simple protocol. 3 nights a week, just before bed, warm a tablespoon of castor oil by placing the bottle in a cup of hot water for a few minutes. Then, using slow, gentle massage, work the oil into the lower belly, groin, and upper inner thighs. For the perineum, sit on a folded towel to apply light pressure and warmth at the same time. Once the oil was absorbed, I told them to put on an old pair of soft cotton underwear and let the oil continue its work overnight. By the second week, James came back with a grin. "Doc, I don't know what's happening, but I'm waking up with, well, you know. And it's not just in the morning. I'm getting the urge during the day again." That urge is your body's way of telling you that the connection between brain, nerves, and blood flow is alive and well. What was happening was simple biology. The castor oil was relaxing the tiny muscles around his pelvic blood vessels, dissolving old adhesions in connective tissue, and reducing swelling in his prostate enough to let blood and nerve signals travel unimpeded. Combined with the nightly spoon, which was feeding his system from the inside, the results were multiplying. But the best part? James's wife noticed a change in his confidence. He was initiating conversations about intimacy again. He was smiling more. That's something I've seen over and over. When a man feels capable in his body again, it spills over into every part of his life. Still, there's a right and a wrong way to use both of these methods, and a few simple mistakes that can undo your progress. In our final section, I'll walk you through exactly how to apply these steps properly, share a couple more success stories, and tell you the one thing you must avoid if you want your results to last. Here's how to put this into action the right way. First, the nightly spoon. Use 1 teaspoon of raw, unprocessed honey, a pinch of ground clove, and a squeeze of fresh lemon. Take it 20 to 30 minutes before bed, letting it dissolve slowly in your mouth before swallowing, so the active compounds begin working in your bloodstream immediately. Second, the castor oil protocol. 3 nights per week, warm a tablespoon of castor oil, massage gently into your lower abdomen, groin, and upper inner thighs, and apply light pressure to the perineum with a folded towel for 10 to 15 minutes before bed. Wear soft cotton underwear overnight to keep the area warm. One of my patients, Harold, 69, started both methods after years of feeling shut down below the waist. Within 3 weeks, he was waking with morning firmness he hadn't seen in a decade, and his energy during the day had doubled. Another man, Robert, 74, had struggled with pelvic discomfort from mild prostate swelling. The honey, clove ritual helped his blood flow, and the castor oil eased the pressure, Now, he sleeps through the night without constant bathroom trips. The science supports what these men experienced. Honey fuels testosterone production during deep sleep. Cloves eugenol relaxes blood vessels. Lemon protects nitric oxide. And castor oil stimulates circulation while reducing inflammation in pelvic tissues. But there are common mistakes to avoid. Don't use processed honey. It's stripped of the enzymes and minerals that make this work. Don't overuse clove. A pinch is enough, and too much can irritate the stomach. And don't skip the warming step with castor oil. The heat helps it penetrate and activate circulation. These methods aren't about forcing an erection. They're about restoring the environment your body needs to respond naturally. With patience and consistency, you're not just improving your nights. You're rebuilding your vitality from the inside out. If you want more methods like this, like the video, subscribe, and comment 1 so I know you're interested. Your body hasn't forgotten how to respond. It's just been waiting for the right care to remind it.